Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to start by acknowledging our team, as Kathy just read them. John and Josie are my colleagues at the University of Mississippi Medical Center, and then Leah and Sarah are two of my now recent graduate students who have just finished. We're in the room with us. I also want to acknowledge Josh Glasner for running our statistics for this, who I didn't have in time to get on the program, but he will be a co-author on the paper when we publish it. So why did we look at this? We looked at this because a survey that's almost a decade old now demonstrated that not many singers were doing anything like this while they warmed up. And there's a lot of history with that I can explain, but that's a different talk. There have been multiple studies that have suggested that laryngeal manipulation in a clinical setting does work in reducing laryngeal area resistance in terms of muscle tension dysphonia patients. There was also a lit review that sort of poked holes in basically all of the studies of laryngeal manipulation up to this point that was presented at this symposium last year, basically citing problematic methodology. I'll explain how we came to ours in a second. But before I do that, I'd like to say that our teams don't even read this giant word salad. All this says is that our team's stance is that singing teachers, if they are not licensed therapists, should not touch their own voice students. That is our team's stance. If you do it, that's great, but we recommend that unless you're under the umbrella insurance policy of a major medical center, you should not touch your own students. So what we are really looking at is singing teachers giving instruction to their students on manipulating their own larynx. Okay, so just so we're all clear, so that's why we call this self-laryngeal manipulation. Not laryngeal manipulation. There is one study that also has shown that there's been improvement in a therapist doing this treatment mid-singing, but unless you can afford that as a singer, good luck if you know what any of these physical therapists make. So this was a multi-site study that was approved by UMMC IRB about a year after it was approved by our IRB at the college, which is a long story as well that I won't go into. And so what were we doing? We were comparing 4 different situations. We had a day of vocalization where they just sang a traditional singing warm-up, scales, arpeggios, SOVT exercises, which we let them choose the SOVT of their choice, hissing and panting. It was a video that I led them through on video, so it was always the same prompts. We did a day of silence, we did a day of laryngeal manipulation. There was also a video that I'll show you sort of how we got there. And then a combination day where they did laryngeal manipulation and the vocalizing in the same day. So these videos, Sarah and I took about a day and a half and made some videos of us vocalizing for high and low voice types. And then on the laryngeal manipulation, we had one video where she was sitting there and I was describing the process as she did it to herself. And then we had another one that if they wanted to look at a man, they could watch me do it while she was describing the activities, which involved things like massaging the neck, tongue, jaw, and then eventually getting into the larynx itself. So that is how we kept our control. We kept our control by the fact that they were always getting the same exact prompts. They never changed, because all we did was play the video and basically assured that they were doing their best to follow along with the videos. Our subjects were 11 college-age voice students with at least 1 year of private voice study. They were currently studying. They were stroboscopically examined by my colleagues at the medical center to confirm for health. And we did all of these days fairly early morning. We were trying to get to them before they did any rigorous singing. Early morning was a varied statement, but we tried to hit them before they did any lessons or rehearsals during the day. So what did we measure? We measured our aerodynamics and sound pressure level with the Pentax PAS. We did the pause syllable train, which you could cite from numerous studies. We actually used pitches, so we had them do the pause syllable train at a sustained loudness level for G3 for our tenor, baritone, and bass self-identified voice types, and G4 for our treble singer identified voice types. We had them do this 3 times pre and post, the actual task for that day. And then we took mean airflow measurements, mean laryngeal air resistance measurements, which is just your intraoral pressure divided by your flow, and mean sound pressure level. We also thought it might be valuable to do some KV data every day. We took it, it was totally non-conclusive because these were all basically healthy voices, so we have absolutely nothing to report in regards to that. All right, so what did we find? Well, in terms of airflow, despite the fact that we had a bunch of people that did increase airflow, there was nothing significant in terms of their increase. Josh was able to run paired t-tests on this, pre and post. Variables were normally distributed, no significant outliers, and we had absolutely nothing significant to report any day. So despite them singing, or just sitting there in silence for 10 minutes, or the laryngeal manipulation of the combination, we saw no significant differences. And as you can see that visually, it's fairly easy to see that in milliliters per second, that's really not much change. How about laryngeal airway resistance? Because this is where we have seen a difference in the literature, particularly with MTD patients. We've seen a reduction in laryngeal airway resistance in therapy sessions using laryngeal manipulation. We didn't find anything significant to report in terms of any of these situations. Here we had non-normal distribution, so we used a non-parametric Wilcoxon-Signed-Ranks test, say that 4 times fast. And again, nothing significant to report. So you may be saying, well, what do you have? Well, here's where it gets sort of, again, clearly not much difference in the laryngeal airway resistance, and here's where it gets interesting. I was not even really initially paying attention to sound pressure level, but then once we did this, I thought, well, this is actually something. In terms of the day they vocalized, notice that our p-value is 0.051. Now that's really close to 0.05. Just keep that in your head. The day they did laryngeal manipulation by itself on day 3, it was 0.856, so not significant. In fact, quite high. But the day they did both, our p was less than 0.001. Now, why did we have this increase in decibel level on the last day, you might ask? Well, I would really like to know. I have a few conjectures that are just pure guess in terms of discussion that are basically setting us up for our follow-up. There are the numbers again for that last slide. It's possible our combination day was always our last day. So the day that they did laryngeal manipulation and vocalized, it was always our final day. It's entirely possible that they just got used to singing into the mask. I mean, if you've never sung into an airflow mask before, it's kind of weird the first time. It was also our longest day, and it's possible that because these were 30-minute sessions back to back to back to back to back, that these people picked up on a little bit of our tension of trying to get everybody in on time. It's entirely possible. So where are we headed? Very simply, well, we still need to run sort of our numbers of our intraoral pressure numbers by themselves, and we'll include those in the published paper. And what we want to do for the fall is we're going to reorder the tasks. We want to have them do laryngeal manipulation second, so vocalize, then LM, and vice versa like we did in this one. We also are going to randomize our day order, so they're not always hitting that combo day as a last resort. And we'll see if we get the same changes in sound pressure level. If we do, maybe there's something to that, and maybe not. Thank you so much for your time.